Another week, another report about a new potential TV deal with the UFC. What's the ideal number of pay-per-views per year? What issue are we too easily ignoring? Why is it so important to have a name ready to call out in your post-fight interview? All that and more in this week's TMB. To ask a question of your own, tweet to @BenFalksma. How does the UFC gain from the proposed new TV deal? 15 events on a brand new, unproven streaming service seems to reverse at least some of the progress the company's made. Also seems like nothing more than a cash grab from the company and the networks. Johan Castro, at the Joan Castro, April 18, 2018. Let's keep in mind that these are all just reported proposals at this point, with nothing official yet, and sometimes these things get leaked to the media as a negotiating strategy. Granted, a report in Variety means a little more than one from TerraZones.com, but it's still worth remembering that we were asking similar questions about a different reported deal just last week. Say the Variety report is accurate. Say the UFC is considering splitting its content between Fox Sports and ESPN, and say ESPN plans to put live UFC events on its new subscription streaming service, ESPN, which costs $4.99 per month. What would that mean for fans? For starters, it means that, if we want access to every UFC event, we'd have to sign up for a new subscription service, but we also wouldn't get the advantage of being able to cut the cable cord, since you'd still need FS1. And what of UFC Fight Pass? What of all those pay-per-views? The last rumored deal had them decreasing by about half. This one offers no such promise so far. It's a lot to ask of fans. Risk of spreading the product out across different paid platforms is that people will just tune out from one or the other, and gradually end up drifting further away from all of it, so that it's a struggle to even get them to notice when you have fights worth paying for. So what's in it for the UFC? Money, for one thing. Spreading the product out allows the owners to get closer to their financial goal for TV rights fees, but without asking any single bidder to do all the heavy lifting for a product with declining ratings. Also, when it wants to, ESPN can really push a sport into the mainstream consciousness. And historically, it only wants to if it sees a profit for itself in the exchange. Fox Sports might like the deal because, while it doesn't need quite this much UFC, it still needs some to fill out the schedule. That's what the big companies involved are likely thinking. It just makes you wonder if they're also thinking about the fans whose spending and viewing choices will make this a success or a failure. What is the story we are not talking about but we should be? Craig Kinghorn, at King66, April 18, 2018. I find myself thinking about Frankie Edgar's quick turnaround from a knockout loss for his rematch with Cub Swanson on Saturday at UFC Fight Night 128. Granted, this one got talked about when Edgar first accepted the fight so soon after getting knocked off his feet by Brian Ortega, but it still seems to me like there's been this gradual shift toward indifferent acceptance on some of these safety issues. Look back at when Michael Bisping went from getting dropped and choked by Georges St-Pierre to stepping in on short notice against Kelvin Gastelum all in the span of 3 weeks. That was exactly the kind of the thing that the UFC used to brag about not doing. It was one of the things that made it safer than football, according to UFC President Dana White. Now football is actually trying to tiptoe toward better safety precautions in that area, while MMA seems to drifting in the other direction. Stuff like that can get normalized pretty quick. It doesn't happen, then it happens once, and then it happens over and over. Pretty soon it's just normal and then we don't talk about it at all. But maybe we should. Ages ago you wrote a piece about fighters being told to basically act like they'd won final round to sway judges. Seems to be getting more important to say something interesting at call out and name in PF interview, even after wars. Your advice to fighters on this at avoiding it. WWE theatrics? Nick Jolly, at Nick812, April 19, 2018. I don't think it's WWE theatrics to ask for an opponent by name after you win a fight. I think it's taking control of your future, since the alternative is to stand there and say that you'll fight whoever the UFC puts in front of you, which is pretty boring. I'm not saying fighters need to manufacture some beef. Every fight does not need to be a grudge match. But when you have that precious few moments of mic time, make it count. Give us some idea of what you want your near future to look like. Pick an interesting next fight for yourself, and make your case as to why you should get it, and we should watch it. Because if you don't, man, there's more fights after yours, and probably another event next weekend, and the weekend after that. It's way too easy to get lost and forgotten in that sea of content. Sometimes you have to make some noise to get noticed. How in the hell am I supposed to watch the CM Punk fight without laughing hysterically as he tries to wrestle a journalist on PPV? How do I not laugh, I say? Big Fat Tony, at Largatoni, April 18, 2018. It's not just how many pay-per-views, but how many total events, since the number of events will affect how loaded with good stuff the pay-per-views are in the end. For instance, the UFC actually ran more pay-per-views in years like 2010 and 2011 than it does now, but it still ran fewer total events. Back then, you might go straight from one pay-per-view event to another, with no smaller shows in between, which is pretty much unheard of now since the UFC has to provide so much content for Fox Sports. The result of this shift in strategy is that fights that once served to bolster a pay-per-view lineup now become fight night main events. And not just one fight night, either. We're talking tons of them, so that instead of one good cable TV card, there are 2 or 3 mediocre ones. I think the ideal number of events is somewhere between 25 and 30, with no more than 12 of those as pay-per-views. You figure an average of 1 pay-per-view a month, plus 1 cable TV or network TV card per month, and you have 24 events for the year. You can allow for a few more sprinkled throughout the year, but too many in the roster get stretched thin, plus people get sick of it. They can't digest all that content. They can't get excited about what's coming next. If you want to build anticipation, it helps to let people miss you at least a little bit. Mike Perry is fighting Yancy Medeiros in July. I have mixed feelings about this. It should be an entertaining fight, but seems like too much too soon for Perry after fighting so much lately with less success than one would hope. Thoughts? Tracy Dickinson, Atrocity 777788887, April 18, 2018. The problem with being a fighter like Mike Perry, who pretty quickly turned into one of the UFC's favorite new guys, is that it's tough to downshift from that. You get a big push, and with it a sudden jump up in competition, and then maybe you lose a couple fights. But you're not going to slink back to the prelims to face easier competition. Not when you're still someone people will watch. Yancy Medeiros is a good matchup for Perry, though. He's an action fighter, not overly tactical, and we know how Perry sometimes struggles with patient, careful opponents. He's also not a huge guy for the welterweight division, and he's coming off a high-profile loss of his own. Plus, late July gives them both some time off to refocus and come back strong. What is up with all the interim titles? TLB, at TFC_Tech_170, April 18, 2018. I get that standing up to Ali Abdelaziz and holding him accountable for his words runs journalists the risk of losing access to his stable of fighters. But shouldn't that be his problem, rather than the journalists, who fearfully continue to provide him a platform? MMA Goddess, at Megoddess, April 18, 2018. There have been a lot of issues raised with manager Ali Abdelaziz, from his arrest history to the inherent conflicts of interest with his former role with WSOF to the way he has fostered relationships between his fighters and the brutal Chechen dictator Ramzan Kadyrov. This sport doesn't have any real barrier to entry for managers or agents the way other major pro sports do. You don't have to have a certain degree or pass any test. You don't even need a clean rap sheet. You just need someone to say that you're their manager. When that same person can put themselves between fighters and the media members who want to talk to those fighters, then you have the issue of access and what it takes to maintain it. But interviewing someone isn't always fearfully providing a platform. If you're a journalist, you end up talking to lots of people who you may not agree with or even like. When these are the people in the sport, these are the people you end up dealing with, at least as long as fighters continue to hire them. Over a year ago, I would jokingly badger you weekly for your personal women's FW rankings. Do you find it insane that there's been 2 title defenses in the division and there are still no rankings and the second best fighter has to first fight a BW before getting a title shot? Brandon, not the lead singer of Incubus, Adult Krama, April 18, 2018. Honestly, I'm encouraged by the fact that the UFC has finally booked a non-title bout in that division. Maybe that's just lowered expectations at work, and maybe it'll prove to be an anomaly, but it at least gives you hope that there's some interest in running an actual division at women's featherweight rather than limiting it to Chris Cyborg destruction seminars every few months. I'm still not about to sit here and rank women's featherweights for you, though. Deal with it. Ben Fowlkes is MaJunkie and USA Today's MMA columnist. Follow him on Twitter at @BenFowlkesMA. Twitter Mailbag appears every Thursday on MaJunkie.